Marcus Sullivan had been demoted so many times that the ship's computer had to create a new rank just for him. Chief Sanitation Engineer, 3rd class, subgrade Omega. Even the AI seemed embarrassed when it announced his title over the intercom. Screw-ups at it again. Lieutenant Rodriguez muttered as sparks flew from the waste recycling unit. The acrid smell of burning circuits filled the corridor, and Marcus stood there with his wrench, looking like a man who'd just discovered fire could hurt. I barely touched it, Marcus protested, which was technically true. He'd barely touched a lot of things that had subsequently exploded, malfunctioned, or achieved sentience and filed complaints with human resources. Commander Blackwood appeared around the corner, his perfectly pressed uniform a stark contrast to Marcus's stained coveralls. The commander's eye twitched slightly when he saw the smoke. It was a familiar twitch. Marcus had caused that twitch so many times that the ship's medical officer had prescribed Blackwood anti-anxiety medication. Sullivan. Blackwood said with the weary tone of a man who'd fought in 3 wars and considered Marcus his most challenging enemy. What did you do this time? The recycling unit was making a weird noise, so I thought I'd take a look. Marcus gestured helplessly at the sparking machinery. Turns out it was supposed to make that noise. It's a waste recycler, Sullivan. Everything about it is supposed to sound terrible. Blackwood rubbed his temples. Just like everything else on this ship since you got here. That stung a little, but Marcus had developed thick skin over his 15 years of service. 15 years of breaking things, fixing them wrong, and somehow making them worse. He'd started as a promising engineering cadet and worked his way down to janitor through a combination of bad luck, good intentions, and what his supervisors called an almost supernatural ability to find the worst possible solution to any problem. The other crew members gave him a wide berth as he shuffled past with his cleaning cart. Even the cart squeaked disapprovingly. Marcus had tried to fix that squeak once. Now it squeaked in harmonics that could shatter glass. "Hey, screw-up," called out Ensign Parker, barely looking up from his tablet. "Make sure you stay away from the diplomatic quarters. We've got first contact protocols happening tomorrow, and the last thing we need is you accidentally starting an interstellar war." Marcus nodded and kept walking. First contact. Humanity's first meeting with an alien species. The Zephyrians had been detected at the edge of the system 3 days ago, and the whole ship had been buzzing with excitement and terror. Everyone wanted to make a good impression. Everyone except Marcus, who would probably be locked in a supply closet during the actual meeting. He'd been locked in supply closets before. It wasn't personal, they assured him. It was just safer for everyone involved. The thing was, Marcus actually understood the systems better than most people realized. He'd been fixing things wrong for so long that he'd developed an intimate knowledge of how they failed. He could predict which components would break down, which circuits would overload, and which safety protocols would activate at exactly the wrong moment. But nobody wanted to hear about preventive maintenance from the guy who'd once turned the ship's gravity generator into a makeshift blender, even though it had made excellent smoothies. As he mopped the corridor outside the bridge, Marcus caught fragments of conversation through the partially open door. Commander Blackwood was reviewing first contact protocols with his senior staff. Standard diplomatic procedures, cultural sensitivity training, universal translators set to maximum politeness. Remember, Blackwood was saying, we represent all of humanity. Every word, every gesture, every decision we make will be scrutinized by an entire alien civilization. We cannot afford any mistakes. Marcus squeezed out his mop and kept cleaning. He'd heard variations of this speech before, usually right before he was asked to stay very, very far away from whatever important thing was happening. The Prometheus had been chosen for this mission because of its exemplary crew and spotless record. Well, mostly spotless. There was that incident with the coffee machine that had briefly achieved consciousness and demanded voting rights, but that had been classified. Marcus finished mopping and headed back to his quarters. Tomorrow would be historic. Humanity would take its first steps onto the galactic stage, guided by the finest minds in the space fleet. And Marcus would probably be cleaning the bathrooms, trying not to break anything important. Little did anyone know that this time, breaking things would be exactly what the situation needed. The Zephyrian fleet arrived precisely on schedule, which should have been humanity's first warning that these weren't ordinary aliens. Their ships moved in perfect formation, sleek and crystalline, like flying cathedrals made of light and geometry. Marcus watched from a maintenance shaft as Commander Blackwood straightened his dress uniform for the 15th time. The entire senior staff was assembled in the main conference room, which had been polished to a shine that could blind a person at 20 paces. "Remember," Blackwood addressed his team, "we follow Protocol 7. Formal greetings, cultural exchange, and under no circumstances do we mention our weapons capabilities or our tendency to solve problems by hitting them with bigger problems." The universal translator hummed to life as the Zephyrian delegation materialized on the transport pad. They were tall, elegant beings with skin like opal and eyes that seemed to hold starlight. Their leader, who introduced himself as High Negotiator Veltar, wore robes that shifted color with his mood. "Greetings, beings of Earth," Veltar said in a voice like wind chimes. "We come in peace to establish relations between our peoples." Commander Blackwood stepped forward with a practiced smile. "Welcome to the UES Prometheus. I am Commander Blackwood, representing the United Earth Space Command. We are honored by your presence." The Zephyrians exchanged glances. Their robes shifted from blue to a cautious yellow. "You are the leader of this vessel?" Veltar asked. "I am indeed. I hope we can establish a lasting friendship between our species." More glances. The robes went from yellow to orange. "We sense inadequacy in your words," Veltar said diplomatically. "Perhaps there is another who speaks for your people." Blackwood's smile tightened. "I assure you I am fully authorized to negotiate on behalf of humanity." Meanwhile, Marcus was trying to fix a ventilation grate that had chosen the worst possible moment to come loose. The screws were corroded, the frame was warped, and the whole thing was making a sound like a dying whale. He'd crawled into the maintenance shaft above the conference room to reach it, but the acoustics were terrible, and he couldn't hear what was happening below. "Come on, you piece of junk," he muttered, wrestling with his screwdriver. The grate creaked ominously. Down in the conference room, the negotiations were going poorly. The Zephyrians seemed unimpressed by humanity's achievements, bored by their technology, and downright skeptical of their peaceful intentions. "Your species has a curious history," Veltar observed, his robes now a deep purple. "You wage war upon yourselves, yet claim to seek peace with us?" "We've moved beyond our violent past," Blackwood insisted. "We're explorers now, seekers of knowledge and understanding." "Understanding," Veltar repeated. "Yet you hide your true nature behind pleasant words and diplomatic protocols." That's when the ventilation grate finally gave up the ghost. It crashed down into the conference room with a tremendous clang, followed immediately by Marcus, who landed on the conference table in a shower of dust and maintenance tools. "Son of a bitch," Marcus groaned, sitting up and brushing debris from his coveralls. "I knew that thing was going to fall." The silence in the room was deafening. Commander Blackwood had gone pale. The senior staff looked like they were witnessing the end of human civilization. And the Zephyrians. The Zephyrians' robes had shifted to brilliant gold. "Fascinating," Veltar said, his voice filled with something that might have been admiration. "This one speaks truth without ceremony." Marcus looked around the room, finally noticing the aliens. "Oh. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to interrupt your meeting." He started gathering his tools. "I was just trying to fix the ventilation system. It's been making this weird noise for weeks, and I figured someone should probably—" "You dare interrupt the sacred ritual of first contact?" Veltar demanded. Marcus paused, a wrench halfway to his tool belt. "Sacred ritual? I thought this was just a meeting." He looked at Commander Blackwood, who was making frantic cutting motions across his throat. "Are you guys having some kind of religious ceremony? Because if you are, I can totally come back later. I mean, the ventilation system is still broken, but—" Silence. Veltar's robes flared even brighter. "You mock our traditions?" "Look, I don't know what your traditions are," Marcus said, getting to his feet. "But around here, when something's broken, we fix it. And when something's making a noise like a dying space whale, we investigate. That's just common sense." The Zephyrians huddled together, their robes shifting through a rainbow of colors. They whispered in their own language, too fast for the universal translator to keep up. Finally, Veltar stepped forward. "This one," he said, pointing at Marcus, "this one has the warrior's spirit. He speaks without fear, acts without hesitation. He mocks danger itself." "I wasn't mocking anything," Marcus protested. "I was just trying to." "Enough." Veltar raised a hand. "We have been testing you, humans. Your leader speaks pretty words, but they are empty. This warrior, he shows us your true nature. Practical. Direct. Unafraid." Commander Blackwood opened his mouth to explain, but Veltar wasn't finished. "We will negotiate with this one." What is his title?" "Chief Sanitation Engineer, 3rd Class, Subgrade Omega," Lieutenant Rodriguez said weakly. The Zephyrians' robes blazed like supernovas. "A Sanitation Engineer? A Keeper of Order? The Destroyer of Chaos. Truly, you humans are more cunning than we imagined." And that's how Marcus Sullivan, the most demoted man in the space fleet, accidentally became humanity's first alien diplomat. The problem with being accidentally promoted to galactic diplomat is that nobody bothers to tell you about it. Marcus spent the next 2 hours in Commander Blackwood's office, being briefed on things he was pretty sure he didn't understand. "So let me get this straight," Marcus said, holding up a hand to stop the flow of information. "The Zephyrians think I'm some kind of military genius because I fell through their ceiling? They think you're playing psychological warfare," Lieutenant Rodriguez explained. "Apparently, pretending to be a janitor while secretly being a strategic mastermind is considered the height of sophisticated deception in their culture. But I actually am a janitor." "Yes, but they don't know that." "Can't we just tell them?" Commander Blackwood's eye twitched. "The Zephyrians have already sent word to the Galactic Consortium that humanity's greatest tactical mind is named Marcus Sullivan. 3 more alien species are requesting audiences with you specifically." "Oh, come on." "It gets worse," Blackwood continued. "The Zephyrians are interpreting your every action as part of some elaborate strategy. When you asked for a sandwich during the meeting, they decided it was a demonstration of human confidence. When you complained about the ventilation system, they thought you were making a metaphor about the flow of information." Marcus rubbed his temples. "This is insane. Tell me about it." The Zephyrian high negotiator spent 20 minutes analyzing your choice of sandwich filling. "Apparently, peanut butter represents the sticky nature of human determination and jelly symbolizes the sweet victory that comes from proper planning. It was just a peanut butter and jelly sandwich." "Not anymore, it isn't. The Zephyrians have declared it a sacred food. They want to know if there are any ritual preparations involved." The next few hours were a masterclass in escalating misunderstandings. Marcus tried to explain that he wasn't a strategist, but the Zephyrians interpreted his denials as brilliant misdirection. He tried to demonstrate his incompetence by breaking a coffee mug, but they saw it as a lesson about the fragility of peace. "Your warrior speaks in riddles," Veltar told Commander Blackwood during their next meeting. "When he says I just wanted some coffee, he means I thirst for knowledge. When he complains about the temperature, he speaks of the heated nature of negotiations." "Actually, I think he just wanted coffee," Blackwood said weakly. Such layers of meaning. Such subtle deception. Truly, this Marcus Sullivan is a master of the mental battlefield. The situation got worse when Marcus tried to fix a malfunctioning door panel during a diplomatic break. The Zephyrians watched in fascination as he poked at the circuits with a screwdriver. "Behold," Veltar whispered to his delegation. "He demonstrates how small actions can have large consequences. The door represents barriers between peoples. The screwdriver is the tool of understanding. And the sparks represent the friction of first contact." The door panel exploded in a shower of sparks and smoke. Marcus jumped back, cursing colorfully. "Magnificent," Veltar exclaimed. "He shows us that sometimes, to open new paths, we must destroy the old ones." "I just wanted to fix the door," Marcus said. But his words were drowned out by the Zephyrians' appreciative humming. By the end of the day, word had spread throughout the alien community. The tentacled philosophers of Rigel VI wanted to discuss Marcus's revolutionary approach to problem-solving. The crystalline hive mind of Tau Ceti was intrigued by his novel communication methods. The floating gas bags of Proxima Centauri had declared him the most entertainingly unpredictable human they'd ever encountered. This is getting out of hand, Commander Blackwood said as reports poured in from across the galaxy. Half the known species want to meet with Marcus. The other half are either terrified of him or want to study his tactical philosophy. What tactical philosophy? Marcus demanded. I don't have a tactical philosophy. According to the Zephyrians, your tactical philosophy is aggressive simplicity combined with calculated ignorance. That's not a philosophy. That's just me being confused. The alien species don't know that. They think you're the most brilliant strategic mind humanity has ever produced. Marcus slumped in his chair. How did this happen? Well, Lieutenant Rodriguez said, consulting her tablet, it started when you fell through the ceiling. Then you insulted their greeting ritual, ignored their cultural protocols, and demonstrated what they perceived as complete fearlessness in the face of first contact. I wasn't fearless. I was just confused. Same thing, apparently. The Zephyrians value directness and honesty above all else. They've been dealing with overly polite diplomats for centuries. Then you show up, completely unimpressed by their fancy ships and formal procedures, and treat them like they're just regular people. They are just regular people. I mean regular aliens. Whatever. Exactly. And that's why they think you're a genius. The communication panel chimed. Another message from the Galactic Consortium. The methane-breathing economists of Wolf 359 wanted to discuss trade agreements. The silicon-based librarians of Vega were requesting copies of Marcus's philosophical treatises. I don't have any philosophical treatises, Marcus said. They think your maintenance logs are coded wisdom. My maintenance logs are complaints about broken equipment. Profound complaints, apparently. The librarians are particularly interested in your essay on the existential futility of keeping coffee machines functional in a universe determined to destroy them. Marcus stared at the ceiling. That was just me being frustrated about the coffee machine. The librarians think it's a metaphor for the struggle between order and chaos. It's not a metaphor. The coffee machine is just broken. But nobody was listening. The galaxy had decided that Marcus Sullivan was a genius, and the galaxy was rarely wrong about these things. Even when it absolutely, completely, definitely was. The next morning, Marcus woke up to find his quarters surrounded by alien observers. Through his porthole, he could see Zephyrian ships, Regillian meditation spheres, and what appeared to be a Centaurian thought bubble taking notes on his sleeping habits. They've been watching you all night, Commander Blackwood informed him over the intercom. The Zephyrians are convinced that even your dreams contain strategic insights. That's disturbing on multiple levels, Marcus replied, pulling on his coveralls. Can't they just leave me alone? I'm afraid not. The Galactic Consortium has officially requested that you address their assembly. They want to hear your thoughts on interspecies cooperation. I don't have any thoughts on interspecies cooperation. Then you'll have to make some up. Marcus stumbled through his morning routine while being observed by 17 different species. The crystalline hive mind found his teeth-brushing technique surprisingly methodical. The gas bags interpreted his shower as a ritual cleansing of preconceptions. His real problem started when he tried to fix the coffee machine. The coffee machine on Deck 7 had been broken for 3 weeks. It made coffee that tasted like recycled engine coolant and occasionally achieved a temperature that could melt titanium. Everyone had learned to avoid it, but Marcus couldn't stand listening to it gurgle pathetically every time he walked past. All right, you piece of junk, he muttered, opening the maintenance panel. Let's see what's wrong with you today. The Zephyrian delegation gathered around him like students watching a master class. Veltar had brought a recording device and was documenting Marcus's every move. Observe how he approaches the mechanical challenge, Veltar whispered to his colleagues. No hesitation, no fear. He speaks to the machine as if it were a living being. It's not living, Marcus said, not looking up from the circuitry. It's just poorly designed. See this heating element? It's connected to the wrong power coupling, and this water line has been installed backwards. No wonder it tastes terrible. Fascinating, breathed a Regillian philosopher. He diagnoses the problem by examining the fundamental connections. A metaphor for all relationships, perhaps? It's not a metaphor. Marcus snapped, frustration getting the better of him. It's just a broken coffee machine. The heating element is connected wrong because whoever installed it didn't read the manual. The water line is backwards because someone was in a hurry and didn't double-check their work. There's no deep meaning here. No strategic insight. It's just basic maintenance. The aliens exchanged meaningful glances. Their various forms of communication devices began humming with activity. Brilliant, Veltar said softly. He reduces the most complex philosophical problems to their simplest components. Read the manual. Double-check your work. Fix the basic connections. Such profound wisdom disguised as practical advice. Marcus wanted to scream. Instead, he focused on the actual problem at hand. The coffee machine's heating element was indeed connected to the wrong power coupling. But that wasn't the real issue. The real issue was that someone had tried to jury-rig a repair using incompatible parts, creating a cascade of problems that made the whole system unstable. Okay, here's what we're going to do, Marcus said, talking to himself as much as the machine. We're going to strip out all these makeshift fixes and start over. Sometimes you can't repair something until you're willing to admit that the previous repairs were making it worse. He began disconnecting the improvised modifications, explaining his reasoning to the coffee machine. This coupling doesn't belong here. This wire is the wrong gauge. This whole section is just someone's attempt to avoid doing the job properly. The alien observers were taking frantic notes. Marcus could hear them whispering about the wisdom of starting fresh and the courage to discard failed solutions. An hour later, the coffee machine was humming contentedly and producing coffee that actually tasted like coffee. Marcus poured himself a cup and took a sip. Perfect, he said, mostly to himself. The aliens erupted in what could only be described as polite applause. The Zephyrians' robes flashed brilliant gold. The Rigelians began a harmonious humming that sounded like approval. Even the gas bags inflated slightly, which Marcus had learned meant they were pleased. Remarkable, Veltar said. In one simple demonstration, you have shown us the solution to our greatest challenge. What challenge? Marcus asked, though he was pretty sure he didn't want to know. The consortium has been trying to establish a unified communication protocol for decades, Rigelian explained. Each species has added their own modifications and improvements, but the system has become so complex that it barely functions. Oh no, Marcus said. But you have shown us the way. Veltar continued. We must strip away all the unnecessary complications and return to the basic connections. Simple, elegant, functional. That's not what The coffee machine was a metaphor. The gas bag delegate announced. The broken heating elements represent miscommunication. The backwards water lines represent reversed priorities. The jury-rigged repairs represent our failed attempts to fix problems without addressing root causes. It's just a coffee machine, Marcus shouted. The aliens fell silent. Then they began that humming again, but louder this time. Even in his frustration, he teaches us, Veltar said reverently. Sometimes the most profound truths are the simplest ones. And that's how Marcus Sullivan, professional screw-up and reluctant diplomat, accidentally solved the galaxy's communication crisis with a cup of coffee and a complete lack of understanding about what he'd accomplished. The really terrifying part was that his solution actually worked. The crisis began at 0347 hours when the Kraken Empire's war fleet dropped out of hyperspace and immediately demanded to know why the galaxy was holding secret meetings without them. The Krakens were not, by any stretch of the imagination, a diplomatic species. They were 8-foot-tall, tentacled beings who settled disputes by seeing who could scream the loudest while waving the most appendages. They had been excluded from the Galactic Consortium not because they were evil, but because their idea of negotiation involved a lot of property damage and hurt feelings. This is Admiral Grok Nash of the Kraken Empire. The communication came through in a voice that sounded like a foghorn having an argument with a garbage disposal. We demand to speak with this Marcus Sullivan, who dares to reorganize galactic society without consulting us. Commander Blackwood was awakened by the red alert klaxons and the sound of his career ending. What's the situation? He asked Lieutenant Rodriguez, who was manning the night watch. The Krakens have surrounded the diplomatic fleet, Rodriguez reported. They're claiming that humanity's new communication protocols are an act of war against species not invited to participate. Are they right? Technically, yes. The other species have been implementing Marcus's suggestions without consulting the broader galactic community. The Krakens feel insulted. Of course they do. Where's Marcus? Asleep in his quarters. Should I wake him? Blackwood considered this. On one hand, Marcus was apparently the only person the aliens trusted to solve galactic problems. On the other hand, Marcus was still the same guy who had once accidentally turned the ship's artificial gravity into a carnival ride. Wake him up, Blackwood decided. But gently. We can't afford to have him panic. Marcus was not gently woken. He was shaken awake by 3 different species of aliens who had decided that the crisis required immediate consultation with the grand strategist of practical solutions. What's happening? Marcus mumbled, trying to process the fact that his quarters were full of aliens at 4 in the morning. The Krakens are threatening war, Veltar explained. They believe your communication reforms are an attempt to exclude them from galactic politics. What communication reforms? Your suggestion to strip away unnecessary complications and focus on basic connections, the Regalian philosopher said. The consortium has been implementing your philosophy across all diplomatic channels. That wasn't a philosophy. That was just fixing a coffee machine. The coffee machine was a metaphor. The gas bag delegate insisted. You demonstrated how to repair broken systems by addressing fundamental problems. Marcus rubbed his face. Okay, but what does that have to do with the Krakens? The Krakens were not included in the new communication protocols, Veltar explained. They consider this an insult to their honor, so include them. It's not that simple. The Krakens communicate primarily through intimidation and displays of force. Their language has 17 different words for aggressive tentacle waving but no word for compromise. That's ridiculous. Everyone has a word for compromise. The Krakens call it temporary victory. Marcus sighed. Fine, let me talk to them. The alien delegates exchanged glances. Are you certain? Veltar asked. The Krakens are not known for their patience with diplomatic subtlety. I'm not diplomatic or subtle, Marcus pointed out. Maybe that's what they need. 20 minutes later, Marcus found himself on the bridge, staring at the main view screen, where Admiral Groknash was displaying what appeared to be an impressive collection of weapons and tentacles. So you are the famous Marcus Sullivan, Groknash rumbled. The human who thinks he can reorganize the galaxy without consulting the mighty Kraken Empire. I didn't reorganize anything, Marcus said. I fixed a coffee machine. The Kraken Admiral's tentacles stopped waving. What? I fixed a coffee machine. Everyone else decided it was a metaphor for galactic communication. I just wanted decent coffee. Groknash was silent for a long moment. Then he began making a sound that might have been laughter, if laughter was filtered through a cement mixer. You fixed a coffee machine, and the galaxy followed your example? Apparently. Magnificent. A warrior who achieves victory through such indirect methods. Tell me, Marcus Sullivan, what is your opinion of the Kraken Empire? Marcus looked around the bridge. Everyone was watching him with the kind of desperate hope usually reserved for last-minute rescues. Commander Blackwood was making frantic gestures that probably meant please don't start an interstellar war. Honestly, Marcus said, I think you guys are probably frustrated because everyone assumes you're just mindless bullies when you're actually trying to be part of the galactic community. The bridge went dead silent. Even the background hum of the ship's system seemed to pause. You see through our warrior facade, Groknash said quietly. Others fear our strength and exclude us from their councils. But you understand that we simply wish to be included. Yeah, well, being excluded sucks, Marcus said. Trust me, I know. You speak truth, Marcus Sullivan. The Kraken Empire has been kept at the margins of galactic society for too long. We grow weary of being seen only as a threat. So stop threatening people. But threatening is how we communicate. It is our nature. Then communicate better, Marcus said, his natural irritation finally breaking through. You want to be part of galactic society? Fine. But you can't do it by waving weapons around and yelling at people. That's not communication. That's just being obnoxious. The bridge crew held their breath. The alien delegates looked terrified. Commander Blackwood appeared to be having a small stroke. Grok Nash's tentacles drooped. You are right, of course. Our methods are crude. But we know no other way. Then learn, Marcus said. Look, I'm not a diplomat. I'm just a guy who fixes things. But it seems to me that if you want people to listen to you, you have to start by listening to them. And maybe try not to surround their ships with weapons while you're doing it. But how do we show strength without displays of force? Strength isn't about force, Marcus said, surprising himself with his conviction. Strength is about being confident enough to admit when you're wrong and willing to change when you need to. The strongest thing you can do right now is stand down your weapons and ask to be part of the solution instead of the problem. Another long silence. Then, slowly, the Kraken war fleet began powering down their weapons. Your wisdom runs deep, Marcus Sullivan, Grok Nash said. The Kraken Empire withdraws its threat. We wish to learn your ways of indirect victory. There are no indirect victories, Marcus protested. I just want people to fix things properly and stop making everything more complicated than it needs to be. Yes, Grok Nash said solemnly. That is the deepest wisdom of all. And that's how Marcus Sullivan accidentally negotiated humanity's first military alliance with a species that considered hello to be a declaration of war. He was really starting to hate his job. 6 months later, Marcus Sullivan had his own office. It was a nice office, with a view of the stars and furniture that didn't squeak when you sat on it. He hated it. But I miss my janitor's closet, he told Commander Blackwood during their weekly briefing. At least there, nobody expected me to have opinions about galactic trade regulations. The consortium has officially designated you as humanity's chief diplomatic strategist, Blackwood reminded him. You can't hide in a closet anymore. Watch me. The intercom chimed. Ambassador Sullivan, came Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice. The Zephyrian delegation is here for your scheduled consultation on the new communication protocols. Marcus groaned. Can't they just call them the coffee machine protocols? At least that would be honest. The aliens prefer the current name, Blackwood said. It sounds more dignified. Nothing about this situation is dignified. The Zephyrian delegation entered, led by VL Tar, whose robes were a cheerful shade of blue that Marcus had learned meant optimistic but slightly anxious. Behind him came representatives from 12 other species, all of whom looked at Marcus with the kind of reverence usually reserved for religious figures. Greetings, Grand Strategist, Veltar said formally. Just Marcus, Marcus replied, as he had every day for 6 months. Of course, Grand Strategist Marcus. Marcus gave up. He'd stopped trying to correct them after the 3rd month, when the Regelian philosophers had published a paper titled The Profound Humility of Denying One's Own Greatness, a study in advanced psychological warfare. What's the problem today? Marcus asked. The Argonian Trade Collective is experiencing difficulties with the new communication protocols, a Centaurian delegate explained. They claim that stripping away unnecessary complications has removed important cultural nuances from their business negotiations. What kind of cultural nuances? Ritual insults. Apparently, the Argonians cannot conduct business without insulting each other's ancestors, mating practices, and choice of breakfast foods. Marcus rubbed his temples. So let them insult each other. But the simplified protocols don't include translation matrices for creative profanity. Then add them. The delegates exchanged glances. Add them? Yeah, if insulting each other is important to their culture, then build it into the system. The whole point was to make communication work better, not to make everyone the same. Brilliant, Veltar exclaimed. You see? Even when presented with apparent contradictions, the Grand Strategist finds elegant solutions. We preserve efficiency while maintaining cultural integrity. I just said to let them insult each other properly. Exactly. Such wisdom. The next hour was filled with similar problems and similarly obvious solutions. The silicon-based librarians needed help organizing their new efficiency protocols. Marcus suggested they organize things the way they wanted to organize them. The gas bags were having trouble with their atmospheric pressure regulations. Marcus recommended they adjust the pressure to whatever worked best. You know, said the Kraken Admiral, who was attending via hologram, the Grand Strategist's approach is consistently consistent. He always recommends practical solutions over theoretical complications. It's not an approach, Marcus said tiredly. I just try to fix things that are broken. Yes, Admiral Grocknash agreed. The wisdom of practical action over theoretical pondering. This is why the Kraken Empire has adopted your philosophy of direct problem resolution. Please stop calling it a philosophy. As you wish, Grand Strategist. We shall call it a way of being. That's worse. After the delegation left, Marcus slumped in his chair and stared out at the stars. Through his window, he could see the permanent diplomatic station that had been built to house the ever-growing number of species who wanted to consult with humanity's greatest strategic mind. It's not that bad, Commander Blackwood said, settling into the chair across from Marcus's desk. You've prevented 3 wars, established 17 new trade agreements, and created the most efficient communication system in galactic history. I fixed a coffee machine, which led to all of those other things, by accident. The best discoveries usually are. Marcus picked up his coffee mug, which had been specially designed by the Zephyrians as a gift. It was beautiful, functional, and completely ridiculous. The inscription read, "To the Grand Strategist of Practical Wisdom, whose simple truths illuminate the complex darkness of galactic politics." They gave me a coffee mug with a philosophical inscription, Marcus said, holding it up for Blackwood to see. It's a nice mug. It's a coffee mug, Jim. It holds coffee. That's its entire purpose. But somehow, drinking from it has become a daily ritual of contemplative wisdom. The aliens respect you. The aliens think I'm something I'm not. Marcus took a sip of his coffee, which was perfectly brewed thanks to the coffee machine that had started this whole mess. Do you know what the Rigelians asked me yesterday? They wanted to know if there was spiritual significance to the fact that I always drink my coffee black. What did you tell them? I told them I drink it black because I don't like cream and sugar. They spent 2 hours analyzing the philosophical implications of dietary simplicity. Blackwood chuckled. You have to admit, it's better than being demoted again. Is it though? Marcus gestured around his office. At least when I was a janitor, people left me alone to do my job. Now I can't fix a squeaky door without someone asking if it's a metaphor for the hinges of fate. The intercom chimed again. Ambassador Sullivan, you have a priority message from the Galactic Consortium. The methane-breathing economists want to discuss your thoughts on resource allocation efficiency. Tell them I'll get back to them, Marcus said. I need to think about it. Shall I schedule a meditation period for you, sir? Marcus looked at Blackwood with an expression of pure despair. They think I meditate. I don't meditate. I just sit quietly and try to figure out why everything is broken. Same thing, apparently. Rodriguez, Marcus called to the intercom. Just tell them I'll send a report when I'm ready. And stop calling it meditation when I sit quietly. Call it thinking time. Of course, sir. I'll schedule your daily thinking time. After the intercom went quiet, Marcus leaned back in his chair. You know what the worst part is? What? What? It's working. All of this crazy accidental diplomacy is actually working. The galaxy is more peaceful than it's been in centuries. Trade is up, conflicts are down, and species that have been enemies for millennia are actually talking to each other. That sounds like a good thing. It is a good thing. That's what makes it so frustrating. Marcus stood up and walked to the window. I didn't set out to revolutionize galactic politics. I just wanted to fix broken things and be left alone. But somehow my complete inability to understand diplomatic complexity has become the solution to diplomatic complexity. Maybe that's the point, Blackwood said thoughtfully. Maybe the galaxy needed someone who didn't understand how things were supposed to work. Or maybe the galaxy is just really, really broken, and I'm the only one stupid enough to admit it. Marcus turned back to his desk, where a stack of reports waited for his attention. Look at this. The tentacled philosophers want my opinion on the strategic value of maintenance-based thinking. The Crystal Hive Mind has requested a lecture series on applied janitorial wisdom. And the gas bags want to nominate me for something called the Cosmic Prize for Unintentional Excellence. May. Are you going to accept the nomination? I don't even know what it means. No, I mean all of it. The job, the responsibility, the fact that half the galaxy thinks you're the wisest human who ever lived. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, staring at the diplomatic station outside his window. Ships from dozens of species came and went, carrying messages and trade goods and delegations, all part of a vast network of cooperation that had somehow grown from his frustrated complaints about a broken coffee machine. You want to know the truth? Marcus finally said. I'm terrified that they're going to figure out I don't know what I'm doing. Marcus, nobody knows what they're doing. The difference is, you're honest about it. That's supposed to be comforting? It should be. Look, I've been in command for 15 years. I've fought in wars, negotiated with hostile governments, and made decisions that affected millions of lives. And you know what I learned? What? Most of the time, the best solution is the obvious one that nobody wants to try because it seems too simple. Marcus sat back down, considering this. So you're saying I accidentally stumbled onto the secret of good leadership? I'm saying you never forgot that the point of fixing things is to make them work, not to make them complicated. Blackwood stood to leave. The aliens respect you because you tell them the truth, even when the truth is, I don't know. Especially then. After Blackwood left, Marcus sat alone in his office, drinking coffee from his ridiculously inscribed mug and thinking about the universe's apparent determination to make him important whether he liked it or not. The intercom chimed one more time. Ambassador Sullivan, there's been a development. The Arcturian Collective is reporting a malfunction in their primary communication array. They're requesting your immediate consultation on repair procedures. Marcus sighed, finished his coffee, and stood up. Tell them I'll be right there. And Rodriguez? Yes, sir? When they ask me how to fix their communication array, I'm probably going to tell them to check if it's plugged in properly and restart it. Just so you know. Of course, sir. Shall I prepare the philosophical analysis of your diagnostic methodology? No, Rodriguez. Just prepare the coffee. It's going to be a long day. As Marcus headed for the door, he caught his reflection in the polished surface of his desk. He looked like a man who had accidentally become the most important person in the galaxy and was still trying to figure out how it had happened. The really terrifying part was that he was starting to get used to it. All right, universe, he said to his reflection. Let's go fix another impossible problem with common sense and see what kind of cosmic crisis that causes. And with that, Marcus Sullivan, reluctant genius and accidental savior of galactic civilization, went off to save the day by doing exactly what he'd always done, telling the truth, fixing what was broken, and complaining about having to clean up everyone else's messes. The only difference was that now, those messes were galactic in scope. But hey, at least the coffee was good.